Yo, welcome back to another edition of the Men Who Cry podcast. Like, subscribe, review, tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend. If you do not do these things, I have to assume you keep illegally betting on games. Shout out to the pitchers of the Cleveland Guardians. Whoo, they are not that team anymore. Almost had a very fraudulent, racist slip up. Yeah, they lost a lot of money. Google that story if you need to. Unfortunately, we will not have the time to get into that details of the story. There's a lot more things to talk about. Okay, we are going to be talking about some firings going on. We will also be hitting you guys up with some presidents wanting to have things named after them. We also have our top 25 butterfly moments of the last 25 seasons. We have number 5, aka a Black Swan event. But first, before we get into that, we are still talking about the NFL, and we are going to talk about one of the craziest careers to transpire. But before we're going to do that, I want to try and give you guys an analogy of kind of what this is, of just what's taking place. So the year is 2015. It's February. The reason why I know it's February is because one of my best friend's birthday is in February. I remember we went out for his birthday, and we were in like the Lower East Side, Soho kind of area. And back then, at least, I don't know. I haven't been out to like type of clubs like this in a while, so I don't know if this still transpires. But if two dudes are going out somewhere, there is a real tough time for you to get in there. 2 is like max. 3, you're just not gonna really have a good chance to get into anywhere special. And I remember we go out and we go to this one bar, and they will not let us in. Or essentially what they do is it says we're only doing bottle service. Essentially, this is the table. So essentially, to get into the door, you're spending anywhere between $500 to $1,000. And I remember my friend were just like walking around. We ended up finding this one bar in this area. It's an Irish bar. And we're inside, and it's fine. Like, there's nothing truly special about it, and at that time, we're trying to, have a good type of night. There's one point where I kid you not, I tell my boy I'm going to the bathroom, right? And I remember he was talking to this girl. I kind of saw him talking to this girl, whatever. And I go to the bathroom. I remember there being like a long wait for the bathroom. And eventually I get in and do my business, and I leave and I come out. And as I come out, I can't find my friend anymore, right? And I'm like looking around this place. It's a pretty spacious area. I'm looking around. I'm trying to even remember to see the girl that he was with. I can't find him. I eventually check my phone, and he goes, "Hey, bro, left with that girl. I'll see you tomorrow." So I just look at him and kind of go like, "All right, fam." So now I am at a bar, the second bar, after spending a long time trying to get into the first bar that we couldn't get into, and I'm now alone in a bar full of people I do not know, right? And we get, or at least me, I'm like, you know what? I'll stay. It was kind of late at this point when he left. And I remember it got to about 1:30, 2 o'clock-ish. And I remember like there's not that many people left in the bar at this point. I'm like, all right, let me go get myself a Corona. So I get myself a drink. I'm sitting at the bar chilling. And I think there was a woman sitting next to me, and I believe I sat next to her, but I didn't really know she was there. Long story short, we end up striking a conversation about the drinks we were having in our hand. This went from a 2-minute kind of back and forth conversation to like a full on like talk for a little bit. And long story short, my night ended up pretty well, right? Now, why am I telling you this story? It is not for me to just gloat and kind of reminisce about what happened. It's to talk about how it is not how you start things, it is how you finish. And that is exactly what is happening to Matthew Stafford and the Rams. I am not talking about him just getting the Rams. Right now, they are 7-2. They're looking very good. They're going to be one of the favorites to win the NFC, if not the Super Bowl this season. But he is on a heater. His last 6 games, Matthew Stafford has thrown 20 touchdowns and has 0 picks in that span. And I wanted to do this because he's had such an odd career. And because the reason why it's so interesting and why this past game was so meaningful is because Matthew Stafford finally became a 500 quarterback. If you look at his record, Matthew Stafford for his career has played 231 games. He is now 115 and 115 and 1. He has a tie in that game. All right. And I need to tell people just how bad this guy started off his career. So Matthew Stafford played 165 games with the Lions. Okay. He had a 62 completion percentage. He threw for over 45,000 yards. He threw for an average of 273 yards per game. He had 282 touchdowns to 144 interceptions with a just under 90 passer rating. But his career record for the team was 74, 90, and 1. He was 16 games under 500. I mean, and the crazy thing about that is the Lions went 0-16 before they drafted him, right before they got him. Since he has been on the Rams, this guy has had an incredible run. He's played 65 games, so 100 games less. He's had 16,000 yards. He threw for 160 touchdowns, 46 interceptions, of 66 completion percentage, and a 97.5 passer rating in that time. Since he has joined the Rams, he has thrown for over 60,000 yards for his career. He's had his personal best 5 touchdown games. And like I just mentioned, he is on a heater. And it makes me go back to think about the idea of him backing in to the Hall of Fame. Right now, I just checked it up right now. He is second in odds to win the MVP. He's actually behind Drake May right now as the favorites to win MVP. And if you look at his career and you add it all up, especially the fact that he was over 500, this is one of the big reasons why Eli Manning, who still isn't in, is probably on that borderline, was because Eli Manning is a 500 quarterback. And his career record tailed so much towards the end of the season, it really hurt him. But Stafford is doing the complete opposite. I don't even think the team needs to get to the Super Bowl again. If he wins this MVP, he's a lock to go to the Hall of Fame. A lock. I don't believe Stafford's ever finished in the top 5 of MVP votes. I really don't believe that he's ever done that. I can look this up quickly. But his teams in Detroit were always so bad that I doubt that he had any thought of ever getting there. This is the current race for him to get there, right? The only thing that he's ever did was his best finish was in 2021, when he actually finished second to Aaron Rodgers that year, right? But like I said, this is his chance right now to get that award. And the reason why it's so important that these two things are explained is it goes to show you once again that one of the themes that I really want to have for this pod is the fact that organizations are the teams that win Super Bowls, they win championships, and they win games. And Matthew Stafford, while I would argue is not a worse player than he was in Detroit, he is definitely not a better player. I do not think he has fallen off during his time in LA. He was never really a running guy. His arm strength is still there, but he's definitely not a better player. He has better talent around him. I know that he had Calvin Johnson, he had Puka Nacua now he had Cooper Kupp in the past, now he has Devontae Adams. He's always had good talent around him, but the organizations were just so ass. And you see how now this is kind of moving him in a direction of being a Hall of Famer in the most bizarro way possible, right? And why this is also important, and why the story I just mentioned to you about how it's not how you start, how you finish, we are going to have a nice, interesting conversation about that in reverse when it comes to Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson, who has been not good as of recent, not just this year, but in the last couple of seasons. When Russell Wilson was on the Seahawks, this man threw for 3,700 yards. He had 292 touchdowns with only 87 interceptions, and it had a 101 passer rating for his time there. The team got to 2 Super Bowls. He won 1 Super Bowl, and He had over 4,000 yards passing one time with the season. He holds a lot of records for the Seahawks. But since Russell Wilson has left the Seahawks, he has been terrible. Okay? He's never posted over 100 passer ratings since he's left. He has been benched since he has left multiple times by every team that he's went to, the Broncos, the Steelers, and the Giants. And he's had one of the most downturned second halves of his career that you can imagine. Now, I think that Russ will get in just because I think those first 9 years in Seattle, he was such ahead of what he needed to do as far as touchdowns, interception ratios, passer rating, wins. And it's not just the Legion of Boom that he can lean on. Yes, those were the best teams he had, but Russ had multiple top 5 MVP finishes, years where he was the only guy getting them, to where they need to go. And the biggest thing was Russ never had a losing record in Seattle. So are those 9 years enough to get him in? I think he will eventually get in, but it's going to take a lot longer than I think a lot of people thought before. I think a lot of people thought once the Legion of Boom kind of moved on and Russ was really cooking and able to do all the stuff that he needed to do, I think a lot of people thought that he was eventually going to be, maybe not a no doubt Hall of Famer, but at least a guy who we're not really questioning. Now he is very much a borderline candidate, and I am very curious to see if he is able to rectify that going forward. Because he might be the starting quarterback for the game this week against the Packers, but we will have a different head coach. Why is that? Is because the New York Football Giants have fired their current head coach, Brian Daboll. Yes, Brian Daboll is leaving the Giants with a 20-40-1 record as their head coach after they started off 9-7-1 his first season where they won a playoff game. They have gone 11-33 since. And this isn't surprising. If you are in the New York area and you are listening to WFAN, one of their producers came on and basically said that Brian Daboll was essentially fired after they lost the game against the Broncos. And I mean, that game was only 3 weeks ago, so this doesn't really seem to be that surprising of him being gone. And reports are right now is that Joe Schoen will stay on as the GM and look to hire the next head coach, which I'll get back to that in a second. But for Daboll specifically, the man was on tilt the entire time. And I believe fully that your team takes on the personality of the coach and how the coach style is. And while I feel a lot of times your greatest strength can be your greatest weakness, I think there was no more of an example of that with Daboll. Daboll was clearly a fiery guy who let his emotions show a lot every time he was on the sideline. But you can tell once things start to slip, he was on tilt and he would always panic. And that was the biggest problem with him. As it was displayed the first time Jackson Dart got hurt, relatively, right? Go back to remember the Eagles game on Prime, where it was the Giants versus the Eagles, and Jackson Dart was getting evaluated for a concussion. Brian Daboll acted as if the game had stopped, and he tried to run into the blue tent to see if his quarterback was okay. Now, granted, you're trying to win games. You are very much in the news for potentially being fired. And this guy is essentially your meal ticket. But there are more to a football team than just getting the quarterback right. You got to coach the team, man. The game didn't stop. Okay? And the fact that he clearly just lost his mind for 4 minutes or so and started to scream at the people who were checking to see if, a person had a neurological problem, he was off from that point. And this organization has been one of the worst organizations in sports for well over a decade now. And it goes back to the idea of how the whole team and the organization is just trying to find its own tail, and it doesn't do what's best interest for the team. They made this problem to start. If you go back and look at it, the Giants were coming off a bad season last year, and there were reports that John Mara, who owns the team, was willing to fire Shane and Daboll. But the reason why he didn't do that was because he didn't want to seem like an owner who was irrational and fired everyone. That's not a good reason not to fire anybody, okay? Because what you did was you put them in an impossible position, right? You had your guys come in and basically say you have 1 year to win. You got the toughest schedule in the NFL this season, and you drafted a quarterback. I don't know how else you can put the organization in more of a crap position, right? Because now everyone feels on edge to do anything. Well, if you fire the coach, you're going to mess with the quarterback, mess the development of the quarterback. All right, well, you fired the GM. But if you get a new GM, he might not like the quarterback that all the fans like, so they might draft another quarterback because their team's so bad. Okay, so you keep everyone, but the team keeps falling apart because the GM keeps drafting bad players who aren't able to do anything good, and the coach keeps losing double-digit leads in the fourth quarter with 4 minutes to go. Like, you were fucked the whole way around. Either you fire those guys last year or you give them contract extensions. But what you did was you try to be half pregnant, which is what the problem is. What caused all of this to begin with. So this isn't just on Daboll. He didn't do a good job. He's not a good. I don't think he's going to be good enough to be a head coach for the NFL team. That's fine. But you didn't fix your problem. And your problem is that your inability to meet the moment when it needed to be and make the decision that, while it might not have been a popular decision, might have to be the right decision. And firing those guys last season was the right decision. Now, like I said before, when I get back to the GM, Joe Shane, it makes sense for the Giants to fire him. There are a lot of mistakes, and I've went through a whole list of them on one of these episodes on this podcast. I think now you have to embolden him and give him an extension. The reason why is everything I just said. If we're going down with this guy, and he has to be your guy. Because what's then going to happen is, if you don't give him an extension and he hires the next coach and next season is bad, you're then going to fire him again to then have a lame duck coach. It doesn't make any sense. You have to back the people there. Whether you believe in this guy or not, whether the fans believe in this guy or not, rather, you got to believe in him. And if you don't believe in him, he's got to get up out of here. So the overall tenor of the Giants will not change until someone actually takes responsibility of what the hell is going on with the team. Because they have been bad and have not seemed to find a way to really fix that part. All right, back at it. Moving on real quick to another NFC team who's not doing very good because their quarterback also seems to be getting hurt. We're going to talk about the Commanders and Lions game, even though the Lions put BTA to the Commanders down in Washington. That's not really the story of the game. The story of the game is that the current president was in attendance. And right now it's reported that Trump was the first sitting president to attend an NFL game since 1971. And like everything with him, he's got to be the main show of everything. So that was doing the Fox broadcast. That was reading some poem. I don't know what the hell he was doing up there talking. The boos were so audible. I don't even know what he said. Right? And the thing about it, people don't realize, right? I know some people, again, the first offense, anytime they talk about their cult leader, will get into the idea of, oh, it's a blue area, so that means the blue area people are going to just boo him. Y'all don't realize the number one employer of the people that live in Virginia is the federal government. He just fired a bunch of people. If you got fired by your boss today and you saw his ass or their ass somewhere in the street, you would have booed them too. They could have been at a coffee shop. They could have been at a dentist appointment. You would have pulled up booing crazy. Okay? And this man is really on his Hunger Games shit. we've just got word that the government shutdown will stop. And while I will not get into further details of it, people will now be getting their pay from this. So this is also part of the reason why I think he went to this. Was I think he knew that this shutdown was going to end that day. There were already reports during the day that the shutdown was going to end. But the lead up to all of it is so massively insane because as these things were happening, food banks were going so long, the SNAP benefits were set to expire or expired for a couple of days. He had like a Halloween party that was like some Great Gatsby style. This guy is literally stuck in the 70s or whatever. And literally someone online posted the pictures together with images of the Capitol from the Hunger Game, just showing the dystopian kind of society that's happening. I'm on my District 1 stuff. That was the Capitol, yeah, District 1. And the ego on it is a level of just almost, you just can't even believe the idea of someone just being so tone deaf. Like, he got booed, man, out of the building and acted like it was just a normal Sunday afternoon. But I think the biggest thing also from this is reports are right now that the Washington Commanders, Joe Harris, his group, are looking to move back to D.C. They currently do not play in D.C. They play in Maryland. And Trump wants his name to be on the stadium. Now, a couple things with this. We only have one president who's ever been have a stadium named after him, a sports venue stadium after him. It's the current one. It's Robert F. Kennedy for the where the Washington Commanders currently play. Right. But I think Trump is missing the boat on a lot of this stuff, because whether it's street signs, whether it's stadiums, whether it's universities, whether it's auditoriums, about 90% of the people that got their names on stuff, they dead. They're dead. I mean, it's just kind of the facts. And they did, and mind you, they got all these things posthumously, right? They didn't get these things when they were alive, right? You'll find some examples. Like I know the Alabama, their field is called Nick Saban Field. But by and large part, this is not the case of how these things are happening. And I'm not saying what his time is left on this earth. We are all on a clock, but it might happen for him, but he might not see the fruits of that labor if it ever gets to that point of his name going on some stadium. So take that with what you will. But lastly, for you guys, we will be doing the top 25 butterfly moments of the last 25 seasons. If you guys are new to this podcast, we have been counting down. When I say we, I really mean me, of the top 25 moments that have happened in sports over the last 25 years that have redefined or significantly affect the sports world in a different way. And we are now at number 5. We are at number 5, top 5 of this. And number 5 that we have is simply titled COVID. Yes, the COVID pandemic is the number 5 butterfly moment on this list. And how could it not be? I think once these 5 are done, any one of these honestly could have been number 1. I really wrestled with where I was going to put COVID on this. But it was a true black swan event. If you remember what happened, many things that happened that just took place. One of the things that I always find funny, and I want to do a trivia question on, is there was a game between the Mets and the Yankees in Yankee Stadium. But because of the COVID rules, I believe they were supposed to play at Citi Field, but they didn't play at Citi Field. And so the Mets were playing on the road in Yankee Stadium, but were the home team, and hit a walk-off home run to win the game. So the Mets had a walk-off victory in an empty stadium in Yankee Stadium. It's one of the craziest things you'll ever see before. And we really saw how much sports ran things. It was a complete, utter mess for the NBA to try to get things together. Remember, you had PGA Golf trying to get things done, like I just mentioned with baseball, with empty stadiums. And it just showed how much of a booming economy sports were. because I remember when we were just there the whole time. I'll give a little bit of backstory. I was working for a company called Overtime, and while we were never furloughed, I would say we definitely had our hours cut a lot, like a lot. I wasn't working as much for them as things going on, which understandably was there's nothing to talk about, and they had a slew of things they try to do to try to like kick back money and try to do things to cover and whatever. And it was just a crazy amount of time spent trying to figure out how to get sports back on TV. And eventually we got the NBA bubble. The NFL kicked off also with empty stadiums. And it was truly one of the wildest 2 years of trying to follow sports. Obviously, we talked about the Olympics getting canceled for that season. Just such a wild time. So yes, number 5 for our top 25 moments that we had in the last 25 seasons was, in fact, the COVID shutdown. All right. Thank you guys again for listening to the Men Who Cry podcast. Like we always say, like, subscribe, review, tell a friend. And back to talk to you guys about the sports later this week. All right. Peace, y'all.